repair boost. Do some copy and paste action. Okay, and lastly, I copy down this value. And we see a small bug where we have returned these two as being void. And it's not quite what we want. We want them to be doubles. So someplace we missed a refactor last time we were in here. Let's go ahead and fix that real fast. Go to iPlayer. Double. So we're going to our contract that governs over the player and making sure that it's going to enforce that these two things are doubles instead of voids. Go to player. This is happier now. Let's copy this guy. Let's return it. Let's change this. Okay. So our player class is coming together. It's got quite a bit in there now. Definitely a candidate to refactor some of this into some commonly used methods. But it gives the platform to do a base or a concrete implementation of one of each of these things and to see them in action. So I went ahead and made an items folder. And so what we'll do is just add a new item. And items are a good place where eventually we want to have a database of whatever kind be the place where all of these concrete implementations are defined. We don't want to have 1,000 classes for each one of these. But so just to say, we'll say, let's call this test hammer. Okay, so we say that we want to inherit this from the player weapon class, and we're going to implement that. And you can already see we have all these things we need to go ahead and implement. So that's fine. So if it has HP boost, we're going to return false. 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 Let's clean this up just a little bit. True. Alright, just going to return 0, just to keep it simple. just going to give that an attack boost of 2. Hammer's probably a decent enough item. So it gives us plus 2 damage to whatever we're attacking. And so we just said that it does have an attack boost, and attack boost is 2. Let's go ahead and add a wearable. Let's go ahead and call this guy I'll be kids watching. We'll go with Lucky Ball Cap. Player weapon. We're going to cheat a bit. Copy all this clean code over. It's more or less what we want. We want to have an attack boost. And it's your Lucky Ball Cap, so whenever you're wearing it, maybe you get a little bit luckier with your strikes. But it's still a pretty standard kind of thing. Alright, let's go ahead and add a new item to our wearables. Oops. And we'll say, leather gloves. Doesn't matter what, but I do like this. Let's go ahead and make this test gloves. Go ahead and rename this. Let's call this Test Hat. Just so we know that we're not really doing this for anything more than system testing. We don't really want to be in the game anywhere. Okay. Alright, so we implemented everything from our other classes, and we still write squiggly. That's because for our wearable, we've got a few more, or just that one more, constraint, where we want to say that return player anatomy head. Let's get rid of that set. Go back over to player wearable. No need to set it. So for our manual testing, it's not really going to make much difference because we're just going to put it wherever we want and do whatever we want with it. But when we start building out a game engine that needs to make decisions and make checks, when you say, let's just say you write in the command, equip gloves, and it's got to know what slot to put that in. It shouldn't be required that you say equip gloves to hands or whatever have you. It should just know where this thing should go. It should also remove whatever's already on your head, put it back into your inventory, and then replace it with whatever you just asked to equip. So the more intelligence we can give, or the more hints and metadata we can give to these items, the easier time we're going to have when it comes to writing out our actual game engine logic. Okay. So, and test gloves, you know what, even if you had nothing else, even if you didn't have a weapon equipped, gloves are going to protect your hands, they're going to help with your grip on things, gives you a +1. Okay. Let's come back over to player. So, right now, if we tried to call this, we'd run into a problem because we haven't instantiated these things we plan on using. So So a little comment here that says new up inventory stores. We'll say inventory is equal to a new list of player inventory items. We'll say that the outfit is equal to a new dictionary. Just so that when we try to call these things for the first time, we don't get a null reference exception. And then for player weapon, this is the only place, because it's not actually a collection, we really can't do anything with it yet. So let's think a bit about how we want that to play out in terms of the API. Let's do this. For the weapon, let's create a new one. We'll make this fists. Pull the class fist. Player weapon. Go back over to our trusty hammer. Boom. Attack boost is 0. Your fists are just your fists. Come back over to our player. Oops. Weapon equal to new fists. Alright, so this is what we get just out of the box whenever we create a player. And remember, we're using a creational pattern here. We're not doing, and so it's going to be a result of a command. So when somebody comes into the game and says, I want to create a player, this is what's going to happen. Because we're going to be calling this constructor. Ideally, later on, when we retrieve our player, we won't have to go through all of this. We'll be querying the database for all the items we need and just returning them back to the system. So it's also an example of where we're separating the commands and the architecture for the commands and the queries for the retrieval. So they'll have different structures and they'll be optimized for what they need to do. So we ignore some of the performance penalties we would get if we were using this as a query as well, but we're not. So it allows us to specialize, focusing on the strengths of the creational pattern, and save the query stuff for a later date. Alright, so when a player gets created, they'll get the name we gave them, they'll get the player type that was requested, game object will be set to player. Depending on the type, we'll get back the strategy, and we'll set the stats based off the player type, and we'll go ahead and new up an inventory. Now, we'll hold off on some of the things like equip or use for right now, or should we? No, let's go ahead and do it. I just lied to you. Alright, because we already have add inventory item, we already have move inventory item. Let's do a public void equip weapon. And we're expecting on a player weapon. And then we want the weapon that we currently have to equal weapon. And do a public void equip wearable, and we'll take in a player